So we're back with Produce 101 Japan, the Girls Season 3, Episode 9. This is going to be the concept evaluation, the original songs challenge. I'm not putting this out right after the stream because there was an issue with the stream where the English subtitles lost their synchronization around 35 minutes. And basically, what that means is that nobody could really understand what was going on. And then I decided to stop watching at that point, and I figured they would fix it. And then I would get to it when they fixed it. And as soon as they did fix it, I did start watching again and making notes again. And so basically where we left off last time is that there were a whole bunch of eliminations, and now the teams for the concept evaluation need reorganization. And so first they had to kick out people who were kind of extra in terms of like the teams that like had too many people. What was interesting is that people were kicked out according to individual members of the team ranking who they felt they needed most in the team. And so that was interesting because in Girls Planet, they didn't really define a method for the girls to use. And so the girls used their own methods. And one team did decide to just eliminate who they disliked, which was kind of really bad. And then another team just voted for who they wanted. And then the people who were kind of like left over, they were kind of like sent away. And I feel like this is a softer blow, and I felt it was a good idea for the Produce 101 guys to say, hey, this is how you should approach it. In one respect, it's kind of odd that Joa sabotaged herself. I feel like maybe no one should nominate themselves, just as a rule, but I feel like she may have sabotaged herself. Maybe she could have stayed if she didn't. But she basically said, I couldn't bring myself to put myself in that top, 5 was it? But mainly these kind of transfers are things that cause low-skilled members to suffer the most because there's less time to learn the new choreo. And then when it came down to the teams that were going to be receiving these members that were kicked out, Popcorn and A to Z, in terms of those two groups, Popcorn predicted better than A to Z. And then chat made him notice that Toxic kicked out their leader. But overall, I would say team reorganization wasn't that bad, and I bet it mostly just kind of hurts to be rejected. And after they were kicked out, the eliminated girls got to decide on their own where to go next. And I don't know if that would have been a problem if they competed over it, but it looks like it just kind of divided nicely for them. And so we get to the main day, and you have Kimura Kayla coming out with Lee Hong-gi here. And it seems like they're performing internationally more obviously now in front of their audience. And so they needed a dual MC. I'm guessing it's more comfortable Kayla to have Hong-gi there because I guess they're in Korea. But Hong-gi also seems to speak multiple languages. But here they've kind of mentioned that the team that gets, or the person in the team that gets 7th place gets no points even if their team wins. And so you really had to do well, no matter what. But if you got 7th, you're kind of just screwed. And so it's kind of a bad mechanic, in my opinion. I don't think there should be that kind of a... why would they just give someone 7th place if their team won? What if everyone did well and no one made mistakes? I feel like it was kind of like a popularity contest in that respect, but a popularity contest that caused you to suffer really terribly. But anyways, we get to the first team, and it's Team Batty. And in this team, Kawabata Ranka got center first, but then it went over to Urara, because Ranka decided she wanted to do rap. And I thought it was kind of odd because I'm like, shouldn't you ask the team? But they didn't. They just kind of just handed it off just like that. And so I guess no one really had a say in it, but I guess once they found out they could have objected, but it didn't show it if they did. But Urara seems to be interesting because, she was in my preliminary top 11 based on the 1-minute intros and the fan cams for Lee Pai. And I feel like she should be more confident. But she hasn't been more confident. And it seems like she has more fear of doing badly than she does enthusiasm for getting the chance to be a center and shine. And so I didn't really expect her to be low confident because she kind of has a good foundation for a really strong idol, but it's just really all in her head. And so when this team kind of practiced for the trainers, uh, they were accused of being kind of low energy. And then I thought something weird happened here, which is that they switched concepts to look more relaxed and strong, which I thought was kind of like against the idea of being more high energy because they were accused of being low energy. And but then when I think about it, maybe the trainer meant they were bland, uh, and so they kind of fixed it by practicing. And when they did, they were eventually praised. It's around this time that the subtitler actually starts going off, and this is where most people would either stop watching or continue watching with extreme prejudice. We get to the performance, and to start with, in my opinion, the vocals on the performance, they're kind of weak. Like, I feel like in terms of the ensemble vocals, individually they're fine, but when they're singing together, there was like no attempt to do harmonies or anything, and that's why I felt it was kind of weak. But I don't know. Maybe some people thought it was fine. Uh, in my opinion, Ranka, she did seem to be holding back a bit, and maybe she just didn't have enough time to shine. But I feel like in between the times that she gets to step out, she was kind of doing well, but for the most part, it seemed like she wasn't always on all the time. Ayano's outfit, I felt like hers stood out more than the centers, and her dance was good. Keiko in this team, to me, had the best vibe. Like, whenever she's on the stage, I just noticed it the most. Reno's voice is good. Yui's voice is clear. Urawa as the center, I would say she's okay in her expressions, but I don't know what she can do, but she could stand to do something to stand out more. But I feel like she's still improved since Renren in terms of like her body shapes and movements. But yeah, there's definitely room for improvement there. But overall, good performance, and the outfits are also good. Now, someone who claimed to be in the actual audience said Hannah stood out, but it was kind of funny because they didn't show her at all to me in the show. Like, I barely noticed her. She was only there for like a split second. But yeah, I didn't notice her at all, so I didn't really mention anything about her. But then something also funny happened is that you have Ayano kind of crying here for votes, and I don't know if I guess that was just a clever use of her time. And so that's these guys, and so what we find out at the end is that uh, Keiko gets first in terms of I think it's the live audience vote. I'm not really sure. Ayano gets second. Hannah gets third, which I find is strange because I didn't notice her. Urara Center gets fourth. Uh, Reno gets fifth. Yui gets sixth. And Ranka got seventh. And in terms of that ranking, I'm not sure I completely agree with it. I don't know if Ranka should have gotten that low, considering she didn't really make a lot of mistakes, but she was kind of holding back in my opinion. And so I would say that her and Urara should have gotten sixth and seventh, but Urara got fourth, and so she did much better. And so yeah, that's this team. We find out later that they were tied for third place with A to Z, with a score of 67. Let's go to the next team. And so this is team A to Z. In terms of this team, all members were in danger. Mina, she was leader before and she continued. But then she also decided she wanted to rap and she lost it to Renan. The funny thing is that chat kind of accused Mina of being greedy. And I would say if I didn't have subtitles, I would have been very confused by what the chat was saying. But now that I have subtitles. It kind of gives it some context. So I'm kind of glad didn't watch much further. Ken the 390 basically said Renan sounds like an actual rapper, which kind of like shade to Mina, who also wanted to be rapper, I feel like. And then Miyu in this team as a transplant from Toxic, she was kind of low key doing some leading, kind of encouraging them members in the team. And during practice, Toxic showed up and started dancing next to them, and seemed Miyu was kind of distracted and sad at the same time. Another interesting thing that happened with this team is Haruka. Apparently, she had troubles with her school, like they weren't letting her be on and off in a very inconsistent way, and so she ended up just outright quitting school. And I'm not sure if I agree with that. Everyone has to decide for themselves, basically. But the other thing that happened to this team is that Hatamena struggled vocally, and she was really shook by feedback as well. And then she practiced the Shizuku, and I think there was some improvement there. But final things, I would say the trainers on the show are kind of fun to see. Their commentary is very enthusiastic, and they actually seem to care and be very hands-on, which is not something I saw a lot of on Girls Planet. It seems a lot of scolding, and then very rare interactions with some of the main hosts, at least. But we get to their performance, and to me, this song, it seems like it'd be nice. It could be nice, but vocally, it was not as strong. I feel like the dance was fine. The dance was great. Mina, when she's singing, she's hitting it just fine, but it does get the sense that it's slightly out of her comfort zone. And you know what? Some people would say that, even though that I don't like that personally, I don't like straining. Some people would consider that a form of someone just trying really hard to reach something, and some people actually like that, like when someone's giving it their all. And so that's just like a personal thing for me, is that I don't like it when people kind of sing songs and it just feels like they're just barely reaching it. I feel like they should kind of either practice so that it's like in their range, or they should just sing in their range. But her dance is good. And then Haruka surprisingly fits the song. I don't really notice Haruka that much throughout this whole kind of series, but she fit well here. Hina, the youngest one, she was kind of a deer in the headlights at times. Renan, I felt like with her hat and her look, she stood out more than the center, which is, I guess, Mina. And then Kagura, there were times when she had minimal expressions, but her voice was very clear. Other than that, Miyu was doing well. She looks actually the most relaxed out of everybody, but her voice was kind of off nearing the end of the song. But overall, it was okay. I just wanted better vocals, really, and so I would say if I would give this team a rank, I would say it's fourth place, but they actually tied with Team Batty. And so, but I would give this team fourth place just because of all the criticisms in terms of the vocals. At the end of their performance, Yumeki, he was basically saying Haruka had no experience a few months ago, which is kind of like interesting to me too, because she's like doing very well. And so I guess some people just find their element. But yeah, that is Team A to Z and Team Batty, both tied for third place. Next is Team and Me. This is kind of like the top ranked team. So all these girls are very highly ranked. It's funny because later on you see Toxic, and they call themselves kind of like the Avengers. But I feel like Admi is the real Avengers. I actually haven't written my notes. They're all top members, new Avengers. In terms of this team, you have an issue with Koto, who's kind of worried about her rank, because everyone else is in reach of being in the debut group, but Koto is kind of like, I guess, bouncing back and forth. I think the thing about Koto is that she thinks kind of highly of herself, and that's fine, but you kind of need voters and the home audience to kind of meet you at that perception and catch up with you. In that respect, she's acting like she kind of deserves it, but maybe that's not gelling with people at home because they kind of want vulnerability and to see someone overcoming their struggle and saying, you know, people saying, I have so much more to learn, you know? And I feel like she's not really doing that, or it's not really visible. But she is kind of like struggling internally. But I feel like the approach to the fight needs to be a little bit more humble, maybe. And then maybe she'll get people on board with her. But I feel like there's something lacking there. There's something kind of like, kind of assumed about her mentality. Assuming. But anyways, Team Batty joins this team, helps them decide the center, and they choose Kokoro and not anyone else. Yumeki basically said that Suzu did well, which wasn't enough for her, and so she ended up spying on Toxic and getting Rand's advice and basically learning how to expose herself more, because Suzu is always worried about not being center material. It's interesting she said that because Chat basically had a fight over her, but it wasn't over her skill. It was kind of like about her looks, and I don't really know what that's about. But some people were saying like something about like I don't know how old she is, but people were saying that she looks like she doesn't belong there. I don't even understand that. But anyways, in practice, trainer Reno is impressed by them, and she praises Suzu. Except that Koto is absent here, and she got the flu. She overworked herself, in my opinion, and she's still sick by the rehearsal date. And so, the last thing that happens is that Reno during rehearsal says they need to hug her for it, and then we get to see their performance. And so, in their performance, I felt the outfits were great. Kokoro has a very good start. Suzume is very noticeable. Uh, Everyone in this team appeared to be singing and dancing on a very high level, and I really didn't see a weak link. Now, Suzume, she's basically so strong, and it's funny because I'm playing this game called Honkai Star Rail on my phone, and she gives me these Topaz vibes, if you guys know what I'm talking about. And at this point, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, she's kind of like more the center than Kokoro sometimes. But besides that, it's a great performance. This team ended up getting number one. In terms of the individual rankings, Tanaka Koto did get seventh, which kind of makes sense to me. But really, this team, they're all good, and someone has to be set for first, and someone has to be last. It's just kind of like the way it kind of ends up, and Koto, she's just not there on the level of all the other ones in terms of maybe her support, and also even just like her mentality and how she approaches this stuff. But last thing I'll say about this is that it's kind of interesting seeing Momona, who seems like a shoo-in for the final group and just having so much support. She's taking very muted back seats in the last couple of like challenges, and I don't know why, but maybe she's worried about like appearing differently or negative if she overexposes herself. And I'm sure there could be a threat of that, but I just noticed that she's not as like out there and enthusiastic as like other people would be. But anyways, we get to the next group, and it's Team Popcorn. So in this team, we have transplants from Toxic, and that's Araki Joa and Hidaka Hazuki, both from Toxic, both struggling to catch up. Hazuki especially. Now both are kind of feeling bad about being rejected, and during the course of training, they're kind of like separated from the team in some sense. But eventually, they're kind of given a talking to by the trainer. There's a trainer, Thelma, basically says Joa needs more determination and confidence. And it's weird because Joa ends up giving kind of excuses about keeping up. But Thelma is basically saying, I'm vibing on your attitude more than anything. It's not really about your abilities and stuff. And so at the end, they try to rally. And what happens later is that trainer Reno, she sees them perform and says the stage is too small for them. She wants to see them outside. They end up performing for her outside, and it's kind of like this kind of funny thing where she just challenges them to really uh, make themselves stand out to her from a distance. And I guess it's kind of like, if you really read into it, it's kind of saying that they're not doing that well. And then something also happens that Serena gets injured, like something is wrong with her back. She can't even do the last rehearsal properly because of her back. But we get to the performance, and I feel like they had a good start. Serena and Nagomi, they have good expressions. Sakura doing very well. Her moves actually stand out. Kokona, she's like kind of performing at the normal speed that you always see her perform at. And in that respect, I'm like, are you really like vibing with this song, or are you just kind of doing what you normally do, which is like, yeah, you can do it good to a degree, but it's like, are you really connecting with it? And then Joa too is kind of doing that maintaining one speed thing, and I'm not sure if it feels sincere. Like, she has a smile on her face, but does it really feel like she's happy? Hazuki is also kind of a bit bland randomly, and it kind of seems like she's not that enthused, even though she is like going through the motions. And I think that's what it is, going through the motions. Sakura had a high note, which was like really crazy. And then, other than that, I would say I didn't see much of Rio, but the times that I did see her, she seemed happy, and it was kind of an okay performance. And then, what you find out after this performance is that they actually got last place, and so getting last place is not good. In terms of the ranking, Kokona, Joa, and Hazuki all get kind of last place within the team. Sakura got first place, and I feel like that's deserved because of the high note. Serena as center did pretty good. Nagomi and Rio getting third and fourth. I feel like that's kind of fair, although I would say that I didn't really notice that much of Rio and Nagomi. And even though Kokona, Joa, and Hazuki were going through the motions, I did notice them more in the song still, even if they were kind of maybe not connecting that strongly with it. And so I'm not sure if they should have got last, but I can understand why they got last. In terms of just the audience maybe not connecting with them. Then we get to the final team, and that's Team Toxic. Now, Team Toxic, they have to decide how to reshuffle the parts after losing so many members. They lose 3 members. And so they kind of like go through the motions again of like having tryouts and whatnot. And then in terms of practicing, Coconut gets called out for maybe not being sexy or being able to pull off sexy. Yumeki singles her out personally and says she needs to be more proactive in that sense. Ayane in practice is just effortlessly doing anything vocal, and so in recording sessions she's fine. Whereas Coconut, she gets micromanaged a lot by the producers to sing more sexy again. And I felt like at this point it started to drag on a bit, and Coconut was just getting a lot of attention for someone who's not even like the center. And then, other than that, Yuki was worried about standing out, and everyone was also telling her to be sexy as well. And I just feel like at this point I've heard the word sexy so many times that I start to really think about like the fact that it was kind of like either the English word or an approximation of it. And I was like, do they not have the word sexy in Japanese? I don't know. Maybe it's a completely Western term. But we get to the performance, and I'm expecting them to do well. So, first thing I noticed is that they had a smoke machine, and then once they start performing, everyone is doing well. Tsukishi, she's going the extra mile in expressions, in my opinion. And Nano, she has elaborate arm movements that are very noticeable. Ayane's voice is super clear. Momoka, she's good, but she's for some reason not polished. I feel like she's not doing that well here. Ran was good. Yuki did well, but she's limited by something unknown. And here's the thing is, Yuki, she's in my top 11 from the very beginning, but I was always unsure about her. And I feel like, I don't know what it is that's limiting her. Maybe she doesn't feel like confident in herself. But there is like a different vibe to her as well. Like, she has a different body type as well, and she looks kind of like more mature than the other ones. I don't mean like necessarily in age, but kind of in her vibe. And so in that respect, maybe she's not fitting in with the groups on that level. And even behind the scenes, she struggled with like trying to be sexy. Same as Coconut, but Coconut did well in the final performance. But she did have the same vibe as like she had reached a limit. But overall, I would say great performance. Yuki, I noticed that when she's on the screen, she doesn't really benefit from it. And this was kind of more clear in the end when she got the microphone. And she was kind of like talking here, and I actually didn't enjoy it when she was talking at the end with the microphone. And so I don't know what that was about. It's just maybe there's just something about some people, and they just naturally just I don't know if it's considered repelling the audience, but there's just something about her that's just not there. And maybe it's an insincerity, which is strange because I thought she was going to be very sincere from the very beginning, and that's why she's in the top 11 from my preliminary rankings. But yeah, that's this team. They got second place with 143 points, which is kind of just shy of 152 points. So unfortunately, they didn't get first place in terms of their team. When you look at the rankings within the team, Tsukushi got 7, which I do not agree with at all. I don't know how she got that. Momoka got 6. Now that is kind of something I can kind of agree with, because she's pretty much like one of the few people I actually said was not all the way there in terms of performing. And then there's that issue with Kokona and Yuki both being people who would say they're being limited by something kind of it's kind of ineffable. But then they actually did really well. Yuki got 3rd, Kokona got 4th. I mean, I would say that's really good for something for this kind of performance, where I personally felt there was like they were being held back in some way. First place was Ayane with the voice, and I feel like that's deserved. Second place is Ran, which is deserved as well. It just seems like she came in and she performed, and there was like no negative incident, no drama, and just did well in the performance, and then she went home. And maybe I don't know if that affects your voting prospects, but whatever it is, she's locked in, and I guess the best thing for her is that they do not showcase too much of her, because she's doing so well. You don't want to change the formula. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. So Anime won, Toxic got 2nd, Atos and Batty were tied for 3rd, and then Popcorn got last place, and I could kind of see why. In terms of Toxic and Anime, I could see why Anime won, because I didn't catch any weak link, like I said, and I kind of agree with them winning. And then in terms of Toxic, I would say Momoka was the only one who kind of like slightly not there and could have been better, and that's not even really that much of a negative against her, and so I kind of understand that. But in terms of the tie between Batty and Atos, A to Z, I would say, I would say maybe Batty. Was it Batty? I can't remember who I would get 4th. I think maybe 4th. Was it Batty? I don't remember. I said it earlier. Now I'm kind of blanking on it. But anyways, another thing I noticed is that the point gap between Anime and Toxic, and then the other 3 groups is kind of nuts. It's like basically more than double. And then they show some kind of 1 to 35 ranking, but I'm not sure what the votes is based on, so I'll kind of just ignore that for now. I'm not sure if the next episode will be an elimination, but it seems like in terms of the preview, it's just going to be a filler outdoor day, and it could be kind of like intermixed with the elimination, which is what they seem to be doing a lot of lately. But anyways, I guess that's it. So this is kind of scattered. I feel like I wasn't that clear. Maybe I should have been more clear. But there was just a lot of information put together, and this isn't the normal time in which I'd view this and give my attention to it. Normally I see it live, and then I'm also way more prepared and also awake for it, whereas this is kind of eating into it time I should be spending doing something else. And actually, it's kind of midnight right now, and so it's a little bit past midnight, and so it's kind of late for me. But anyways, I guess that's it. Those are just my thoughts. I'm trying to avoid recapping, and I keep doing it, but I feel like I kept to things that were interesting to me, more than anything this time. And I'm just going to try to keep less detailed notes next time. But I guess that's it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it or it's too long or something, just let me know. I know it's 30 minutes. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so I can see you in the next video.